There comes a moment in life when everything around you looks the same, yet something within you has changed. The job you once prayed for no longer satisfies your soul. The friendships you once clung to begin to feel shallow. The routines that once brought comfort now feel like cages. And you can't quite put it into words, but there's a stirring in your spirit, a restlessness you can't explain. It's as if an unseen hand is rearranging the furniture of your life, and you feel both unsettled and strangely drawn to something beyond what you know. You try to ignore it. You tell yourself you're just tired or overthinking, but the feeling doesn't leave. It follows you into the night. It meets you in the quiet of the morning. It interrupts your plans, and it whispers in the pauses between your conversations. That restlessness is not a curse. It is not a sign that you've failed. It is not random emotion. It is a divine nudge from the one who knows the path you were created for long before you took your first breath. God often speaks in ways that do not sound like a voice you can record. Sometimes his loudest messages come in silence, and sometimes the silence is not empty. It is full of direction, full of invitation, full of holy disruption. That restlessness you feel is heaven's way of telling you there is more. You are not meant to settle in a place that was only supposed to be a stop on your journey. You are not meant to hold on to things that were only meant to be seasonal. There are doors you must walk through, but you cannot enter them while clinging to everything you have now. God loves you too much to let you get comfortable in a chapter that is meant to close. It is in these moments of holy discomfort that the Lord begins to realign your heart. You may notice you no longer enjoy certain conversations. You may lose interest in things that once consumed your time. You may start questioning why you are where you are. And the truth is, you don't have all the answers yet. Because God isn't trying to hand you a finished blueprint. He's trying to lead you step by step in faith. If he told you everything at once, you might resist, overthink, or run ahead of his timing. So instead, he stirs your spirit just enough to get you moving, to break the chains of complacency, to prepare your heart for what's coming next. This restlessness can be uncomfortable because it disrupts your sense of security. We humans crave predictability. We like to know what's next. But God is not calling you to a life of safety. He's calling you to a life of purpose. And purpose rarely comes without movement. Think of Abraham, living in his homeland, surrounded by everything familiar, when God called him to leave, without telling him exactly where he was going. There was no map, no GPS, no step-by-step plan. There was just a call and a stirring, and that stirring was enough to pull him away from the known into the promise. That is what God is doing in you now. The dangerous thing is that you can ignore this stirring. You can bury it under busyness, drown it out with distractions, or silence it with fear. But doing so will only prolong your sense of dissatisfaction. You were made for more, and when you try to force yourself to be content in a place you've outgrown, you will always feel the tension between your present comfort and your future calling. God will not let you stay where his presence is no longer leading. Sometimes that restlessness is his mercy, keeping you from wasting years in something that was never meant to define you. Some of you are feeling this in your career. You're doing the work, you're meeting the deadlines, you're fulfilling your role, but deep inside you feel a pull towards something else. You may not even know what that something else is yet. You just know this isn't it anymore. Others feel it in relationships. People who were once aligned with your values and your vision now seem to speak a different language. You still care for them, but you can sense that your paths are no longer running in the same direction. And some of you feel it spiritually. The way you used to pray, the way you used to worship, the way you used to experience God. It's like it no longer fits. It's not that you've lost your faith, but your spirit is yearning for a deeper encounter, a fresh revelation, a greater intimacy with him. Restlessness is often the prelude to transformation. It is God's way of loosening your grip on the old so you can receive the new. But here's the challenge. The space between what was and what will be is the hardest to live in. It feels like you're suspended between two worlds. You can't go back to who you were, but you're not yet who you're becoming. And in that in-between, you must trust that God is working, even when you can't see the whole picture. This is where many people get frustrated and give up. They think God is silent, when in reality, he's speaking through the very absence of clarity. Silence forces you to lean on him instead of your own understanding. Silence teaches you to listen differently. Silence strips away the noise of other voices so you can finally hear the still, small voice that has been speaking all along. When you feel that holy discontent, resist the urge to run back to what's familiar just because the unknown feels risky. Growth is always risky. Faith is always risky. And the rewards of obedience are always greater than the temporary comfort of staying put. If you choose comfort over calling, you'll miss the miracles that only happen when you step out. God is stirring you because there is an assignment attached to your life that has not yet been fulfilled. There are people you are meant to impact, places you are meant to go, and opportunities you are meant to embrace. But they exist outside your current comfort zone. That's why you can't shake the feeling that there's more. It's not ambition, it's alignment. It's not impatience, it's preparation. Heaven is positioning you for something your eyes haven't seen and your ears haven't heard yet, but your spirit already senses it. And here's the truth, that restlessness will not go away until you move in obedience. You can pray for peace all you want, but real peace will only come when you are where you are meant to be. If God has called you to a new place, a new role, a new season, you will not find lasting contentment in the old one. It's like wearing shoes that no longer fit. They may have been perfect once, but now they're too tight, and the only way to walk comfortably is to step into something new. The restlessness is not punishment, it is an invitation. It's God's way of saying, I have more for you. Trust me enough to let go of what you see so I can give you what you can't see yet. It may not make sense right now. You may not be able to explain it to the people around you. Some will not understand. They will tell you to be grateful, to stop overthinking, to settle down. But remember, they are not the ones who feel what you feel. They don't hear what you hear in the quiet of the night. They don't carry the assignment that is on your life. You do, and when God stirs you, you must respond, even if no one else does. There is a powerful truth you must hold on to. Obedience often precedes understanding. If you wait to move until you have all the details, you will miss the moment. Faith requires action before clarity. Just like Peter stepping out of the boat, you must take that first step onto the unknown waters, trusting that the one who called you will not let you sink. So if you feel restless today, don't ignore it. Bring it to God in prayer. Ask Him to reveal what He's preparing you for. Be willing to release anything that no longer aligns with where He's taking you. And most of all, trust that this stirring is not here to torment you, but to transform you. The restlessness you can't explain is the signal that you're on the edge of something new. And when God begins to move, it's always because He's leading you to a place where His glory will be revealed in ways you never imagined. You will look back one day and realize that the very discomfort you tried to pray away was the catalyst for your breakthrough. You'll thank God that He didn't let you get comfortable where you didn't belong, and you'll understand that every restless night, every unanswered question, and every quiet whisper in your soul was His way of leading you into the fullness of your purpose. The restlessness is not your enemy. It is your guide, your compass, your holy push toward the life you were born to live. Trust it, embrace it, and let it carry you into the next chapter God has already written for you. There are moments in life when something begins to echo through your days in a way you can't ignore. It might be a verse that keeps appearing no matter where you turn. You read it during your morning devotion. You hear it in a sermon later that week, and then a friend quotes it to you in casual conversation without even knowing what's been on your heart. Or maybe it's a phrase, an idea, a single word that keeps returning to you, as if heaven has put it on repeat. It comes when you are quiet, when your thoughts are still enough to catch the sound of it brushing past your soul. It doesn't shout, it doesn't force itself on you. It simply returns again and again, patiently waiting for you to notice. God's voice often travels on the waves of repetition. We think divine communication will always come as a thunderclap, a sudden and undeniable moment of clarity. But more often than not, it comes as a gentle but persistent reminder. And when He repeats Himself, it is not because He is trying to fill the silence. It is because He knows how easily we dismiss what we hear the first time. We get distracted. We second guess. We tell ourselves we're imagining things. But God, in His mercy, will keep sending the same message until we understand it is meant for us. This is why it is so important to pay attention to the patterns in your life. When you hear the same truth in different settings, when a single verse seems to be chasing you from place to place, when a certain conviction keeps resurfacing in your spirit, you are not dealing with coincidence. You are experiencing God's patient persistence. He is using repetition as a form of confirmation. It is His way of saying, you didn't miss it. This is for you. Pay attention. In the quiet moments, these patterns become clearest. It is when the noise fades, when you are alone in prayer, when the night wraps around you, when the morning light is soft and new, that you begin to realize how often this message has been circling your life. You see it in the words of a stranger. You feel it in the lyrics of a song. You read it in a devotional you didn't plan to open. And the more it appears, the more it begins to sink in that this is not random. This is personal. Many people ignore these patterns because they expect God's voice to feel different. They want a grand, unmistakable sign, something dramatic and impossible to miss. But often, God chooses the simple and the subtle, because His goal is not just to deliver a message. His goal is to cultivate your ability to listen. If He shouted every time, you would never learn to lean in. But when He whispers, when He weaves a message into the fabric of your daily life, you are forced to slow down, to become aware, to tune your ear to His frequency. Repetition is also God's way of building faith. When you hear something once, you might be inspired for a moment, but it's easy to let it slip away. When you hear it again and again, it starts to take root. It stops being a passing thought and starts becoming a truth you carry. Think about how Jesus often repeated certain phrases when He taught. He knew that repetition engraves truth into the heart. The same is true in your life. God repeats Himself so that by the time you act on His word, it has already been written deep within you. Sometimes these repeated messages are about direction. You may feel God urging you toward a certain choice, a certain step, and He will keep confirming it through what you hear and see. Other times they are about correction. If you are drifting into a path that will harm you, He will send the same warning through multiple channels until you recognize it. And sometimes the repetition is simply encouragement, a steady reminder that you are seen, that you are not forgotten, that His promises still stand even if you can't see their fulfillment yet. The danger is that if you are not listening, repetition can turn into frustration. You might hear the same message so many times that you dismiss it entirely, thinking, I've already heard this before. But the reason you're still hearing it is because you haven't fully acted on it yet. God doesn't repeat Himself for His sake. He repeats Himself for yours. He knows what's at stake if you ignore His leading. He knows the pain that can come from delay, and He knows the joy and breakthrough that can come from obedience. If you look back over your life, you may realize there were times when God was repeating something to you, but you didn't recognize it until later. You can remember seasons when a truth kept appearing, but you brushed it off, thinking it was just random. Only in hindsight did you see how intentional it was. The good news is that He is still patient. Even if you missed it before, He will find another way to bring it to you again. There's something sacred about the quiet moments when you finally notice the pattern. It's like discovering a hidden thread running through your days. You realize that God has been speaking the whole time, that He has been near the whole time, that His hand has been guiding you through every repetition. It humbles you because you see how much He cares about making sure you hear Him. It stirs gratitude in you because you realize He never gave up on getting His word to you. This is why it is so important to slow down. We live in a world of constant noise, endless notifications, constant demands, rushing from one thing to the next. But God's messages are often like soft rain. If you move too fast, you miss them. If you want to hear Him clearly, you have to make room for stillness. That's where patterns become undeniable. That's where repetition reveals its purpose. It's also why Scripture tells us to meditate on the Word day and night. Meditation is not just reading the Bible once and moving on. It is dwelling on it, turning it over in your mind, letting it speak to you over and over again. The repetition in meditation allows the truth to penetrate deeper than a passing glance ever could. And as you meditate, God often highlights the same things repeatedly until they become part of who you are. If you are in a season where the same thought, verse, or phrase keeps coming back to you, I encourage you not to dismiss it. Write it down, pray over it, Ask God what He is trying to show you through it. Don't assume it's random just because it's simple. Sometimes the simplest truths are the ones that change everything when you finally live them out. There's a beauty in realizing that God loves you enough to repeat Himself. He doesn't just say something once and then leave you to figure it out. He walks with you, reminding you, confirming His word, ensuring that you know He is speaking. And the more you respond to those repetitions, the more sensitive you will become to His voice. You will start noticing patterns faster. You will recognize His tone. You will trust His leading even when it doesn't make sense to your natural mind. One day you will look back and realize that the repeated message that once felt small was actually the turning point for your life. You'll see how it prepared you for what was coming, how it kept you from a wrong path, how it gave you the strength to step into something new, and you'll thank God that He spoke in a way that was patient enough, persistent enough, and personal enough for you to hear Him in the quiet. The truth is, He is speaking more often than we realize. The question is not whether God is speaking, but whether we are listening. The repeated patterns, the recurring messages, the phrases that keep returning to you, these are not just echoes in your mind. They are the heartbeat of heaven, pulsing gently through your life, calling you closer, guiding you forward, and reminding you that you are never walking alone. If you'd like, I can now prepare the third 3,000-word keynote narration on a deep peace, despite unanswered questions, so all 3 parts of your 7 signs God is whispering to you in silence flow in the same tone and style. There are seasons in life when the questions outnumber the answers. You pray, you fast, you seek counsel, and yet the details remain hidden. You can't see the full picture. The path ahead looks uncertain. People around you might even ask how you're managing to hold yourself together when nothing around you feels settled. But deep inside, there is a quiet stillness, a calm that doesn't match the circumstances, a peace that has no logical explanation. It's not the peace that comes from everything working out. It's not the relief of having all the answers. It's something far greater, the unshakable assurance that even without knowing the outcome, you are safe in the hands of the one who does. This kind of peace does not come from human reasoning. Human reasoning always demands clarity before it can rest. It says, "Show me the plan, and then I'll trust." But God's peace works in reverse. It invites you to trust before you see the plan, to rest before you see the provision, to breathe before you see the breakthrough. It's the peace that whispers, "I am with you," even while the storm still rages. It's the peace that allows you to sleep in the middle of a night you thought you'd never survive. The world teaches us that peace is the absence of trouble, but God teaches us that peace is His presence in the middle of it. That is why you can have tears streaming down your face and still feel the strength to keep going. That is why you can walk through a loss that should have broken you and still sense that something inside is holding you together. That is why you can say, "I don't understand, but I am not afraid." This is not denial. It is not pretending the hardship isn't real. It is the recognition that the God who spoke the universe into existence is still speaking over your life, and nothing is outside His control. You may not have noticed it at first. You may have expected that when the bad news came, you would collapse. You may have assumed that when your plans fell apart, so would you. But instead, there was this quiet strength, this holy calm that met you in the middle of the chaos. It didn't remove the questions, but it removed the panic. That's how you know it didn't come from you. It came from Him. Peace like this is one of the clearest signs that God is whispering to you in silence. He may not be explaining every detail, but He is holding your heart in a way that assures you you're not walking through the valley alone. And often this peace comes after you've let go of the need to control the outcome. It comes after you've released the fight to figure everything out. It comes when you surrender, when you say, "Lord, I don't know what's next, but I know you do." It is in that surrender that His Spirit begins to anchor you. The waves can crash, the winds can howl, the shadows can loom, but your soul is anchored in something deeper than the storm. People may look at you and not understand how you can stand so steady when so much is uncertain. What they don't see is the unseen hand holding you, the quiet voice reminding you that His promises are still true, the invisible covering of His presence that keeps you from falling apart. This peace is not fragile. It's not the kind of peace that can be stolen by a bad day or a disappointing report. It is rooted in the eternal, in the unchanging nature of God. When you know that His character does not shift with your circumstances, you stop letting your circumstances dictate your emotional state. When you know that His love for you is constant, you stop measuring your worth by how easy or hard life feels at the moment. And when you know that His plans for you are good, you stop treating delays as denials. Sometimes this peace will feel almost strange. You'll look at the facts of your situation and think, I should be more worried than I am. But instead of fear rising, you feel a quiet assurance. This is not weakness. This is not complacency. This is supernatural. The Bible calls it the peace of God which surpasses all understanding. It surpasses it because it's not based on understanding. It's based on trust. And trust is not built in the sunshine alone. It's forged in the shadows, in the moments when you can't see what God is doing, but choose to believe He's still working. You may still wrestle with questions. You may still wake up some days wondering why certain things had to happen. Peace doesn't erase curiosity. It simply keeps curiosity from turning into despair. It's the difference between holding your questions with clenched fists and holding them with open hands. With clenched fists, you try to force the answers, and the weight crushes you. With open hands, you offer them to God and allow Him to carry what you cannot. It's worth remembering that Jesus Himself modeled this kind of peace. When the disciples were panicking in the storm, He was asleep in the boat. Not because the storm wasn't real, but because His trust in the Father was greater than His fear of the storm. And when He faced the cross, He didn't lash out in chaos. He walked forward with the deep knowing that the Father's will was still good, even when it didn't look like it. That same spirit of peace is available to you now. This peace often shows up after you've prayed and left something in God's hands. It doesn't always come instantly. Sometimes it grows slowly, like a light breaking through the fog. You may not even notice it at first, but as the days go by, you realize you're not as shaken as you thought you'd be. And in that realization, you begin to see that this is God's way of telling you, I've got you. You don't need to figure it all out today. Just walk with me. It's also important to understand that having peace doesn't mean everything will turn out exactly the way you want. Peace is not a guarantee of the outcome you've imagined. It's the assurance that whatever the outcome, you will be held, guided, and provided for. When you live from that place, you stop clinging to your plans so tightly because you know His plans are better. Even if they lead you through places you didn't expect, they will always lead you closer to Him. In fact, peace is one of the most powerful witnesses you can have. People can argue with your opinions, they can debate your beliefs, they can dismiss your convictions, but they cannot ignore a peace that makes no sense in the natural. When they see you walking through uncertainty without losing your joy, when they see you face loss without losing your faith, when they see you carrying unanswered questions without being crushed by them, they are seeing the evidence of God's presence in you. There will be times when the questions remain for longer than you'd like. You may pray for clarity and not receive it for months or even years. But if you keep your heart anchored in Him, the peace will remain even when the clarity doesn't. That's how you know it's supernatural. Because it's not dependent on your circumstances changing. It's dependent on Him not changing. One day, the answers may come. You may look back and see exactly why the delays happened, why the detours were necessary, why the closed doors were actually protection. But until then, the peace will carry you. It will allow you to keep moving forward without being paralyzed by what you don't know. It will give you the courage to take the next step, even when you can't see the whole path. And it will remind you every single day that God's presence is enough, more than enough, to sustain you. This is the beauty of living with a deep peace despite unanswered questions. It's not about pretending everything is fine. It's about knowing that even when it's not, you are still held in the grip of a love that will never let you go. It's about being able to say, I don't know what the future holds, but I know who holds my future. And when you live from that truth, the storms may come, but they will not sink you. The shadows may fall, but they will not consume you. The questions may linger, but they will not rob you of your rest.